What is up, Buckeye Nation? Flowco here. Scarlet and Great. Ohio State football was Scarlet and Great right here on YouTube. Man, I'm rusty at this still. Guys, got a great show for you today. We're going to talk about the new running back coach for Ohio State. I brought in a good friend of mine who knows a lot more about Buckeye football than I do. Dylan Freeman, our resident scout, our resident eyes on the ground, who understands the workings and ins and outs, what's going on with Ohio State football. Dylan Freeman, how you doing, Dylan?
Pretty good, Corey. Thanks for having me.
You sound excited, buddy. Go tone it down just a little bit, man. It's like it's a Saturday afternoon. You got me out of freaking taking a nap, dude. What's wrong with you? Anyway, so Dylan, it was rumored for a while. Names came up and down about who's going to replace Tony Alford for the running back coach, and then we landed on Carlos Locklyn from Oregon. The biggest school he had ever coached at was Oregon. Obviously, if you look back at his history. And kind of, I mean, it's exciting getting from Oregon, but his history, you just don't know a whole lot about him. How would you grade this hire, just overall, the summary of it?
I'd say a B plus.
B plus, okay. So you give a passing grade to Brian Day for this.
Yeah, I think it's a good hire, and I think the upside is tremendous.
Okay.
I think
what's the best part about the upside?
Known about him, like you were just saying, there's not a whole lot known yet, and it's to be determined.
That's fair.
Unlike Chip Kelly, you know what I mean? Like, those results are going to be good, like, and just based on background and history and things like that. And it's pretty easy with some other coaches that we hired to know, like, hey, this guy has proven it. Mm-hmm. And he does have a relatively short and small sample size so far in his career.
Exactly. When Chip Kelly got hired, I actually likened that to hiring Kevin Wilson when we hired him. I think it's a similar type of deal, except Chip Kelly had more success as a head coach, obviously, but still great offensive minds. Carlos Lachlan obviously replaced Tony Alford. Let's get into Tony Alford a little bit. He left at a very precarious time. Everybody knows the story now. Okay. Everybody knows what happened. Well, they don't know what happened, but they know, he left in the middle of spring ball to go to the team up north, which is the cardinal sin of it. Not leaving. See, Tony, I know you watch the show from time to time. Not every freaking episode that comes out, but Tony, I'm going to tell you right now, people aren't mad at you for leaving. They're mad at you for where you went. You have to understand that as part of the rivalry. Come on, Tony. I don't wish Tony any ill will. I think he's a good guy. I've had exchanges with him in the past. I think he's a really, really talented, good guy. I think he's actually a better recruiter and better coach than Ohio State fans give him credit. Not saying he's like Brian Hartline, because there's very few that are Brian Hartline in recruiting, but he's solid. Yes, he's missed on some. Yes, some kids have flat out lied to him. There's some stories there. I'm just going to put that out there. But Tony is better than what I think Buckeye fans have given him credit. I think they're a little salty he left. I get it. I was too. I was like, come on, Tony, middle of spring, that's kind of crappy. But anyway, why, Dylan, I'm going to get into it with you. What made Tony want to leave?
I mean, how many years has he been here, Corey? 9?
9 years. Since Urban.
This would be his 9th year. I mean, one thing is, you see him since we've been covering it 9 years, 2 times Colorado State's jobs came open, right?
Yeah.
Where he's been.
He interviewed it for a couple times, yeah.
He interviewed it for both times. He wants to improve his career, which I'm not faulting at him. You know what I mean? Like, everyone I know likes him. Like, he seems like a good guy. So there's no, like you said, no ill will. It's just he wants to improve his career. And, after 9 years, he's had very little improvement. He's gotten a few things like run game coordinator added to him, or associate head coach, you know what I mean? Or associate head coach to the offense. So, like, there's things that he's been added, but it was more of a title that he's been added than an actual responsibility. And that's really what's held him back from getting to the Colorado State job in the last few years. No offense coordinator experience, no real say in the offense. Like, he has input, obviously, because he's an important coach. He's been here for so long, but he's been no real, like, hey, on third down, let's call this run play. You know what I mean? Like, doesn't have the final say on any of these things. He does have running back rotations. However, that's a small part of what he wants to improve. And Michigan, very young staff that they're hiring now, you know what I mean? And experience-wise, especially. And Tony can go right in there. So he's getting an extra year on his salary. I guess, or an extra year on his contract, which is huge. Job security, you know what I mean? We were giving him 2 years. That's the most we would extend it for. And he's making a little bit more money and more, like, actual responsibility in their offense. So, like, it's hard to argue. You know, I have no problem with the reasons he left. You know what I mean? It's how he left is what irks our fans. You know what I mean? Going to Michigan and going to them during spring break. So like, those are the two things. But he wants to improve his career, in advance so he has more responsibility. This is really going to be the only way that he does it, because it's not going to happen in Ohio State, unfortunately.
Yeah. I mean, if it hadn't happened by now, it ain't going to happen. I mean, there's been plenty of opportunities to say, okay, Tony, we're going to bump you up. And they went with Brian Hartline because you can't lose Brian Hartline. Now, Hartline's not ready to be an offensive coordinator yet. He's not ready to call plays and things like that. But it does seem like the at least the deal in place with Bill O'Brien, as it will be with Chip Kelly, is to kind of groom Brian Hartline into that role because, that's what Hartline wants. And we're going to do everything we can to keep him on staff and to make sure he grows. Give him the growth responsibility he wants. Alford, it just, for whatever reason, Urban and Ryan Day both just didn't quite give him that responsibility. I don't know what it is. Don't get me wrong. I'm not going to pretend I know, but it says something, obviously, that maybe their faith in him wasn't that high as far as going to that position on the staff.
And if you look at around the country, how many offensive coordinators are running back coaches?
Not very many.
There's not. You know what I mean? Like, that's just one of the positions that you don't.
It's usually a QB coach or wide receiver coach. Yeah.
Or offensive line even, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, true.
More and more of that now. But, yeah, you don't see a whole lot of running back coaches getting promoted, and some are content with being a running back coach with a little more responsibilities, and some aren't, and that's okay. You know what I mean? That's just it wasn't going to happen here. He was not going to get more responsibilities, and you just don't see it a whole lot. And so you kind of have to know your role in the offense and know like that you're going to have limited opportunities unless you excel beyond expectations, which are, I mean, pretty high, especially at Ohio State standards.
Yeah. So, hey, listen, on a personal level, I wish Tony the best. I'm not going to be one of those nasty fans who decides to say terrible things, but I don't know how it all went down 100%. I'm not, and there's rumors about how he left was bad with the players. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend like I'm in the locker room. I know that Carlos, when he left, he did send 50 signed notes to the players to thank them for the opportunities he's gotten. I think that's a pretty darn classy way to come into Ohio State. So it's obvious he's off on the right foot by being good to his players at Oregon and not forgetting them, but while taking an opportunity. And for Oregon fans who say Carlos is making a lateral move, I don't know what planet you're living on, but not even close. Oh, we beat you last time. Great. We're 9-1 against you. Got it. All time.
Yeah.
And we happen to have one of our worst defenses in like Ohio State history and it was so bad the defense coordinator got demoted after that game. So congrats.
The rumor is that made some fans upset and some potential members of the staff is apparently they were told he told recruits' parents before he told some of our players.
Wow.
So, you know what I mean? Like, which he has every right to do. It's how he handle it. And he's honest with the kids, you know what I mean? The recruits. So, like, I get that. That, like I said, it's a rumor. That's just what I've heard. That made some of the fans, especially closer to the program, a little upset that they were not told first and that their recruits were told.
Yeah. I mean, kudos to him being honest with recruits, I guess. But, yeah, I mean, I think no matter whatever barriers there were between Day and Alford towards the end there, I think Alford, I mean, you kind of owe it to the administration to say, look, I'm leaving. I got a better offer and I got to take it. And that's the thing for me and my family. Okay. I can respect that.
As they were very surprised about it at the timing.
And it's not uncommon in just regular life. If I have a contract with someone or I have a handshake agreement with somebody in my business, if they come back and say, hey, look, we reevaluate it. We just can't use you. Okay. You told me you're honest with me. I appreciate that. I'm not no harm. But when they just go behind my back and do it a different way, then I'm a little pissed off. It's really about a respect factor. I mean, maybe he feels disrespected too. So I'm not going to, like I said, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm really trying here. I don't want to be that guy. I'm trying to be a more positive fan as I go forward these days, so I don't want to be that guy. Now every minute I'll have an emotional moment every now and again, like anybody else. But let's keep it. Let's keep to the positive here. We got a new running back coach. What I want to talk about maybe possible differences in style from Alford to Lachlan. What did they go for somebody who kind of would just pick up where Alford left off, or he want to go in a different direction with his running back game?
So, like I said, we were talking about earlier, not many get promoted from running back. Do you know what I mean? Just because there's small differences in coaches. You know what I mean? Like, obviously style. One of the things that he preaches is toughness. Mm-hmm. Like, that's one of his biggest things. He wants the contact. Some coaches.
He sounds like it.
Some of the coaches want to avoid, you know what I mean? Like Trey, you know what I mean? Like, you think that, hey, that might struggle. But, I mean, if you look at all of Oregon's running backs the last couple of years, they fall forward, even the smaller ones.
I've never seen Trey shy from contact, to be honest, even with Alford. He's always head first.
Yeah, and so one of the things he preaches is toughness, and he wants to take on the contact and make you feel his players the whole game.
I
And
like that.
yeah, and so, I mean, some coaches teach avoidance, you know what I mean? And that's complete. I get it. Like either way, like it's obviously like more spread offenses, like 4 and 5 wide receiver sets. Like sorry, 4 wide receiver sets and 3 wide receiver. Sometimes you want to use quick hitters, you know what I mean, and use your small back. But I mean, even Bucky Irvin was not a big guy at Oregon, and he was running downhill. Like that's one thing he wants is downhill runners.
Well, he's got the rotation to do it between Trey and Quinn and obviously Down Hayden, who's still here. We'll see Down still here after the spring. It'll be a little interesting to see how that goes. But that being said, he's got the talent to do it. And apparently James Peoples is looking really good in spring. I think J.K. Dobbins is the comparison we're hearing from him. And J.K. his last season with us did not shy from contact at all.
No.
He could get away from people, but he'd love to put his head down. And like I said, I mean, I like that mentality. I like the mentality. He says, I don't care what star you are, you're gonna have to earn it in here. I think that's cool. I think that's great. I think it's a dog mentality we haven't totally had at Ohio State for the last few years. As you said, a B plus higher, but some of it's kind of to be determined. I like to give coaches a benefit of the doubt till they prove me wrong. Even Kerry Combs, I understand. He was a mess as a DC. I get it, but I gave him the benefit of the doubt. I was like, oh, we'll see what he does. Let's see what he does. I'm confident he'll be good. I was wrong. Okay, fine. But I like to say Carlos is going to be a great running back coach and a great addition to the staff until he proves me wrong.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, everyone loves him, like in the staff, you know what I mean? Like every member of the team loved him. He was not just a running back coach for Oregon. Like he developed relationships with even the defensive players, you know what I mean? So like it was something like that. Like you see, like he wrote 50 handwritten letters to his staff and players and stuff like that. It goes beyond just, which is one of the things that Tony excelled at too, you know what I mean? Beyond football.
Yeah.
And so like a lot of similarities and being a father figure. I do think that Lachlan's a little tougher on his players.
I think we kind of need that in our staff. I really do. I think
Yeah.
the last few years I've been critical of it. This whole love conquers all brotherhood thing. I'm like, look, I do agree there's got to be an aspect of a brotherhood to it, a family, but families fight. Families get on each other. Families hold each other accountable. And I just don't know if we've been doing that the last few years. I can tell you right now, I'm loving hearing all the scrums that are coming up in practices and kids fight. And look, those I heard from a Super Bowl winning coach recently, not recently, but a few years back. He said, look, when there was a bunch of fights in mini camps and the press were like, well, man, are you concerned your players aren't getting along? He goes, no, I want those fights to happen. I want that competitiveness to happen. They'll get in the locker room and they'll hug it out. You know, it's not a big deal. But on the field, I want them fighting and battling and getting angry. I think it's a good sign for this season that this team is, there's a lot of scrums going on. And honestly, Carlos looks like a guy who would kind of sit back and let him work it out. Let him work it out. I
don't think you want him getting involved in it.
No. Oh my goodness, he's got some guns on him. Jeez, I saw that shirt when he was at Florida State, and you see him in that shirt, and you're like, yikes, that guy's scary. Hey, kudos to him. He's keeping in shape. How's his recruiting? That's what everybody wants to know. What do you anticipate on a recruiting level from him?
So luckily, I mean, kind of the cool thing is this year, I mean, he comes from Oregon, which we joke about lateral move, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they're recruiting at a pretty high level right now.
They are. No, I'm not dissing their program. They have a great program. Yeah.
Yeah, they're recruiting at a pretty high level, and so he's been on these guys, a lot of these guys that we're already recruiting. So I think that's a good thing. Like Jordan Davison said, that's his best relationship. You know what I mean?
That's Jackson, our number one target, isn't he?
Yeah, Bo Jackson also loves Coach Locklyn. So like a lot of these guys already really like him, and he's just a really down to earth guy. Like he's seen everything, you know what I mean? Like he's been through the worst of everything. Federal prison, like he worked for a federal prison while he was trying to work while he was working at Memphis.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
As a weight room assistant. So like he's come from the bottom, you know what I mean, and done every single job and to earn, like he's scratching clawed to get to where he is today.
So he was not born on third base.
No, he's risen to where he is, and like he's had to earn every single thing he's got. And that's why you see up to this point in his career, like he went from a weight room assistant 3.5 years ago. You know what I mean?
Now he's a running back coach of the most prestigious colleges in all the country.
Yeah, he went from Western, then he went from weight room assistant to director of personnel at Florida State to help with recruiting, and then in Western Kentucky, and then Oregon now here. So like it's pretty fast ascension from where he was 6
And
years
he
ago.
had just gotten an extension from Oregon a couple months ago, so it wasn't like they were like, "Oh, we're glad to see him leave." Like Tim Beck when we got him from Nebraska. I
Mhm.
remember Nebraska fans were like, "Oh, thank God, he's gone." Oregon fans were fairly salty this guy left.
They are. They are still annoyed.
That's a good sign that you don't want the guy to leave. I mean, that's a good sign. Now, people would argue that we were salty over Tony. It's about where he left. I'm going to go back to that. If he'd have gone to, I don't know, Alabama, I'd be like, well, it's not Nick Saban anymore, but okay, you went to Alabama. Uh, the team up north during spring, yikes, but the Oregon fans are not happy Carlos left. What's been the response from our team? Like, I mean, are they pretty excited about the addition?
They're just really getting to know him. You know what I mean? Like other than Day, who's had the conversations, and Chip
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, like the staff and players. I mean, what did he get there on Tuesday this week? Later, he got there late Tuesday. He had his first
Yeah.
practice Wednesday, so they've done 2 practices with him. And he's really kind of watching. You know what I mean? Still feeling it out and getting
Do you
to
think
know.
Dave's still kind of running the running back room while he feels it out, or?
Yeah, I think that. I mean, he's kind of showing him how he lets the room run right now.
Gotcha.
But one of the cool things is, do you see the 2 new offers that we put out there this year for the 2025? Like that happened pretty quickly. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he came right in and Dave let him have his offers. Whether we'd accept him or not, I'm not sure at this point. You know what I mean?
No, you got to let them know up front. Hey, you have some freedom here. It's not a. We're
Yeah.
not going to hold you back. Yeah,
And I mean, that's not always been the case with some of our new hires.
that's true.
So,
That's
so
true.
I think that adding, like letting him pick his guys already that he wants and continue the relationship is a pretty big step that day, like, hey, like I'm going to let you run this one out. I want to see how it works. You know what I mean? Like you've proven so far in your career, like it's been short but successful. So like let's see what you can do, what you're made of. And he's throwing them to the wolves already. And as far as recruiting goes, and I think that's going to be a big one. Um, I I think he has a certain type of guy. Like I said, with his running back room, he wants toughness.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at the new guy that was offered from Baylor in high school in Tennessee, where Max LeBlanc went, that guy runs really hard. Like he's a big, strong kid. He runs hard, like Judkins. I think like Judkins is like his ideal back. You know what I mean? Like I know that everyone wants Judkins, but like just looking at the power and strength, and you know what I mean, just falling forward at all times, he's picking up that extra yard and a half. Like those are the type of guys that he wants. So
Judkins is a dream come true for him.
he really is. Like he's just fast enough and has enough burst. You know what I mean? But
He's more quick than fast. He can get in and out of that hole really quick.
Yeah, he's very quick, but he's not. I mean,
no, he's not a 4-4 guy. He's a 4-6 guy.
Like if you watch the kid, the one running back that we just offered from Tennessee, like in Baylor, Tennessee, is he's fast-ish, but like he runs really hard, 6'2", big, strong, 215. So like he runs really hard downhill. Doesn't waste a lot of excess movement at the line.
See that's the beauty of it. And running backs who waste movement at the line drive me insane. And I think Trey has really improved on that over the last 3 years, and give Trey all the credit in the world for that. And then I think he's going to like Trey too, because Trey is, again, I've never seen Trey to be afraid of contact. Yes, he gets hurt. Don't get me wrong. I know people are going to mistake it. Well, he's always hurt. He gets hurt, but he doesn't like, I don't want to get hit. I've never seen him. I mean, honestly, one of the turning points against Notre Dame at home in 2022 was when he put his head right into the linebacker's chest in the middle of the field and just said, we're winning this game. So I
think Trey has kind of struggled with, whether it's running back coaching or what it was, is it looked like early on in his career, he was never sure if he was supposed to avoid the contact, take it on, like, you know what I mean?
Thinking way too much, yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't sure exactly what to do. Whether you get chopped up to being young and inexperienced because he didn't play his senior year in high school, you know, which definitely could play into it. I mean, or some coaches, like I said, teach avoidance.
That was because of COVID, right? I think he did play. Yeah,
he was the COVID class, 21. So like you could chalk it up to a lot of things, but if you watch Oregon's offense, their running backs, they went downhill, they hit their hole, and they hit it hard. And you were that linebacker in the hole, if he was there, like he was going to be on for a ride.
And see that when this is why Zeke and JK were so great is it's not because they made the 80-yard runs consistently. It's because Zeke could obviously, and JK once in a while could score him through there, but he didn't have the top end speed Zeke had, but it's because those 7 to 8 yard just pounding runs that just beat up a defense and wear defenses out. And you'd wonder why we're winning games by 20 and 30 points sometimes against teams we probably shouldn't even be doing that. But it's because of that run game. It's because we were be able to be physical in the run game.
I mean,
so,
if you look at his running backs at Oregon, 6.1 yards per carry, 7.1 yards per carry, and 7.3 were his top 3 running backs this year. Like,
excellent.
2,500 yards rushing. I mean, I know Bo Nix is included in that. You know what I mean? So there's some, but I mean, 2,500 yards rushing over, what's that, 6.5 ish right there, yards of carry around there. I mean, for top 3 running backs, that's pretty impressive.
And you're giving him you're giving his services to a guy in Chip Kelly who is a master at developing the run game, especially out of the spread offense, with a quarterback who's going to be, what am I not? I'm about to say verbal. I'm like, not verbal. What's the word I'm looking for? He can move. He can run. But it's whether it's Howard or Devin Brown. I believe it'll be Howard, but eventually. But if it's Devin Brown, he's also can move a little bit. So a little bit. I mean, they overdid it with him saying he's like Michael Vick, but it's like, okay, dude, seriously, he's not that great of a runner. But that being said, you give that guy a pounding running back room, already most talented running back room in the country. Let's call it what it is. To a guy like that who demands toughness out of his running backs, downhill running, with a guy who can scheme a running game as good as anyone in the country with Chip Kelly. I think working with Justin Fry again, all signs I think have to point to Ryan Day wants to really start leaning on the run game again.
I mean, that's been our identity for what, 50 years, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's where we thrived. And even early on in this, I mean, I know 2014, like, we were spread offense, but we ran downhill like most of the time. Like, we were still heavy offense, like heavy.
Zeke was a genius between the tackles. Absolutely.
Yeah. And like, that's where we need to get. I know we have all the immense talent in the world out wide. That should help you run the ball even better, you know? So like, use that as an advantage. So I think we're going to see a lot more quick game as far as passing to supplement.
You can tell that in the practices. Julian Sands throws are quick little RPOs hitting the slant.
Yeah, I think that getting the running backs downhill more as opposed to Day likes the sideline to sideline runs, which zone scheme, you know what I mean? Which a lot of teams have success. However, I think that, I mean, if we continue to, which I think Kelly was going to go a little more downhill than Day wanted to, and I don't think that anyone else on staff had enough gravitas yet to argue with that, you know what I mean, until Kelly came in.
Kelly or Bill would have both had the ability to tell Day, like, you're wrong. I'm sorry, you're just wrong. And it's good I think that's what we missed with Kevin Wilson last year, not being there, is a guy who could be in that room and tell Day, you're just flat out wrong. I mean, I don't know how true it is, but according to Menace, there was a time where in the beginning of Notre Dame, when we were trying to pass the ball and it wasn't working, it was Kevin Wilson in the headphones screaming at Day, you need to start running the bleeping ball because that's what's working. And I remember even in the stands watching, it's like, we can run on these guys. Why don't we just start pounding them? Yeah. So, I mean, Mayan Williams was an animal that game, just an animal. I wish him the best, by the way. I know he's going pro. I hope he hangs on a pro team somewhere, even if it's practice squad, something. Just, I wish him the best. So glad Trey came back. Glad to have Judkins here. So let's talk real briefly. What happened to the other guys? Because Carlos was not reportedly the first option for Ohio State. I don't know if it's plan B, C, D, whatever he is. I don't think it matters. I think it's like Day says, there's a tier. It's plan tier 1, tier 2. You have like 4 or 5 guys you consider tier 1. What would you say Carlos was? Is he the kind of the last resort of tier 1?
I think he's middle of the pack in tier 2.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think it's a very small list. I think
it's not 15 people, obviously, but
yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot of difference between some of these running back coaches. You know what I mean? Like, it's tough to pinpoint on their success because
it's not the same as choosing an OC, obviously. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Like offensive line, you know what I mean? There's many factors into it for running backs, you know what I mean, than just that. Like whether your quarterback's a running threat, you know what I mean? So there's this thing, like obviously Eddie George, that wasn't going to happen. There was talks of it as far as interest on our end, but none for him. Gillespie was his clear cut. Like after we got the realistic candidate, Gillespie was the guy we wanted, just didn't work out, you know what I mean, timing wise, which is a little reason that our staff was kind of annoyed with this time, which I think we would have had a good chance. I also think.
Do you think after spring we could have had a better shot at like a Murray or a Gillespie?
No, I think it was. I think
it had to be before spring.
Yeah, I think anytime we would have had to wait till like after the season, realistically. You know what I mean? To get another.
Jeez, and then who's going to be your guy?
Yeah, and so I mean, I think our tier one outside of Eddie, which I'm not really considering that because it was never like a real.
That was never an option. Let's be real.
Dan Drayton, Gillespie, and DeMarco all wanted the job at one point.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was just a couple factors for Drayton. He could never get out of his contract. We would have had to pay almost close to $2.5 million buyout. You know what I mean?
And then you got to pay him probably $1 million a year almost.
Before this, 3 months ago, when or in January, Drayton wanted to leave, and Temple wanted him to leave. So like that would have been a perfect fit. You know what I mean? And they would have paid the buyout right then.
Yeah, Drayton I would have been excited about. He's one of those. I mean, I'd have been excited about Murray and Gillespie as well. Drayton, I think, only gets enough credit for what he did here. And by the way, you look at his recruiting record; he's an exceptional recruiter. When he's at
Cleveland, which
even guy like I mean, there's a great story about him telling Urban, no, not Derek Green, go get Ezekiel Elliott. You'll be happy, and the rest is history. There, obviously.
Bijan, you know, it's like I think Drayton was of the realistic. So Murray, he wanted the job too. Like I said, all these guys wanted it. And then getting closer to the thing, his heart at Oklahoma doesn't love the staff, like his head coach, Venables, but it's Oklahoma, it's home, it's familiar.
He's their all-purpose leader all time.
And Gillespie, I mean, if this was in January, I think we would have gotten Gillespie, as he wasn't sure about DeBoer, if DeBoer was going to keep him even, you know what I mean? He wasn't sure about the whole situation.
Crazy if DeBoer said no to him.
But you never knew, you know what I mean? Like, you just don't know. If you might have your own guy that you want to bring. Just comfort and relationships went out, and recruiting, and for most time, and coaching staff. And so I think that Gillespie, 3 months ago, Gillespie would have been an Ohio State running back coach if we would have found out then.
Yeah, Alford definitely put us in a bind by his timing, that's for sure. Yeah, but, I think it's going to work out. I think Lachlan's going to be fine.
Yeah, and then the Penn State coach, Sider.
Oh, I didn't. Okay.
Was the other one in this round that we were kind of looking at as the two main focal points.
That wouldn't have been bad. I'd have been okay with that.
No, he's a good recruiter. Apparently, Day just wanted, after he met him and stuff like Locklyn and had that initial conversation, he wanted that one rapidly done, and he's known. I mean, Day's known about it for about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks now. Who the guy is, just waiting for that buyout. That's made known. You know what I mean, on April 1st. Yeah. Half the buyout, so no reason.
It was just a waiting game. He's like, look, I'll coach him for now, and then we'll get our guy. And
so like they both have known, just waiting for the April 1st to make it official. The recruits have known for about a week before it was hired. They were known for about a week. Okay. So like they were aware of it. Interviewed, he interviewed Trey, Judkins, Hayden, Sam Williams-Dixon, who's having a pretty good spring so far, and Peoples. And so they got their all feedback. And so it was pretty positive. Like they were excited about him because some of the guys had a relationship, but some didn't. But they felt his want. Like some people,
he comes off as really authentic.
Yeah.
I think he's the guy who could easily gain those relationships because he just comes off as authentic. Whenever I hear him talk, I'm like, this dude's real. Like him or not, he's real.
And some people are going to agree or disagree on this subject, but he's a man of faith, and some of his kids and players that are, really respect him for that. And like, he's genuine. Like if you look at his Twitter and stuff like that, he posts about God. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, how dare he?
Yeah, quite a bit. You know what I mean? So, but that's one of the things that a couple players have actually brought up recently, and as far as recruits go. So like that, they do notice that, and some of them do like that. So like, he is an authentic person. And there's so many different aspects to him that he would never thought he would be in this position. So he's pretty darn elated to be running back at Ohio State coach. You know what I mean? So like, he's not taking it for granted like some people might.
Of course not. Yeah, I get you. And he's not a big star in his own head.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Because there's some guys you might bring in and their ego may not fit with what the staff wants. I'll tell you one thing real quick before we end the show. I'll tell you, even when Alford left and Day was kind of put in a bind and he had to coach running backs, I don't know what it is about Day's demeanor this spring. He just seems happier. He's in better shape. He looks like he's lost some weight. And when he was coaching the running backs, like, it's kind of fun, actually. I'm actually having a good time with this. I get to see other guys, how they work. And I'm like, Day's different. In the press conferences, now, Dylan, correct me if I'm wrong, doesn't he seem different? Like he's just a little bit more verbose. He's kind of happy. He's a little bit more upbeat.
I think the past 2 years took a toll on him.
Mm-hmm.
He really did. And I think he took it to heart way too much. Every single decision. And last year
he was a bit of a control freak.
Yeah, I mean, what a good one isn't, though. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm not knocking him for that. Urban was a control freak. I get it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not.
Yeah, so it was more. My point was kind of more the fact that he took it on himself. He had to do everything offensively last year.
That's kind of true.
You know what I mean? So he had to be head coach, offensive coordinator, position coach.
Yep. And recruiter.
So like it took a toll on him.
Oh, and CEO and fundraiser.
And he had to step in more with special teams. You know what I mean?
You think Parker wasn't doing a good job?
So yeah, it was a lot for him to do, and he's getting questioned by the media more, which I'm not saying he should or shouldn't. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't won big yet at Ohio State. He hasn't won the Big Ten championship recently. So like there's fair criticism, but I think that now that he has Chip Kelly that is running the offense and Jim Knowles that is running the defense, with him being able to help out at every spot more, I think it's making it more fun for him. Mm-hmm. And getting to do more. So he's getting to do less coaching, which he likes, it makes it kind of an oxymoron, you know what I mean? Contradicts it. But he's kind of getting to run it and see how his guys want to do it and give his input as opposed to doing it, all of it. Like it's much easier to help on a project if you're the boss, you know what I mean, than do the project with someone. Like it's much easier to give your input.
Absolutely.
That's where he's at right now. And I think he is a little happier and he knows that. I mean, there was a time last year, early on, or late in the year before, you could see our guys were stressed. You know what I mean? Like our players were tight in some of the bigger games. And I think that that also took a toll on him is because he felt all that. And he obviously has some say in that, you know what I mean, and how they are. So I think that he realized that he can't be like that as severe and kind of let go and just enjoy the ride that he's on. Like, I think it's control what you can control. That's all you can do. And I think that he's starting to see that to an extent as opposed to what he had been the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's funny. New client of mine that I just started working on. He's a Michigan fan, and nice guy. Nothing against him at all. But we were talking coaching. I said, "Yeah, you took Tony Alford from us," and he goes, "Oh yeah, I heard about that." And then I said, "Yeah, and Ryan Day's kind of on the hot." We got into coaching talk, and I said, "Ryan Day's kind of possibly on the hot seat this year a little bit." And he goes, "Yeah, that's crazy to me. Guy wins 11, 12 games every year. I don't understand."
I don't see that. Ryan Day could lose to Michigan again and lose the bowl game again. You know what I mean? And
it'd be interesting to see how. I think Ross really likes him.
I do too. And that's the thing. Like I don't see he's a very good coach. You know what I mean? I'm not sure he's elite. Like in top 2. You know what I mean? But I think
not yet. But he's only 45, 46.
Yeah, I still think he has time, and I think that. I mean, if you look at a lot of the guys, he has his guys right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He has Fry. He had, some people are not a huge fan of, but Fry's one of his guys. He has Chip Kelly. He loves Knowles, and they've been what's his year 3 now? You know what I mean? Of him running it. So I think that he's comfortable with the pieces, and I think that he really took a hard look at the staff this past offseason, which I think helped lead to Tony's little angst that he had. Yeah. By not getting renewed. Like Fry didn't get renewed, at least that we know of yet. And Tony were the only 2 that didn't get renewed. And that's
there's some good and bad with Fry. So it's kind of like you got to give Fry a message like, dude, we got to do better than this.
Yeah. And he deserves that praise and criticism. You know what I mean? Like when they had a couple good drives. Yep. So I think that obviously Chip Kelly, I think, is going to help Fry out just based on the running game and scheme. You know what I mean? And now you add, Trey was hurt last year for what? How many games was that? 3 games?
5, 6,
4
7 games.
Yeah. And so you had Chip train him, who I think I love Chip. You know what I mean? Like I think he's very underrated, but he's not a great running back. He's a good one. I still think he could possibly make a practice squad eventually. You know what I mean? So I think he has a piece, and then Mayan Williams was never there. You know what I mean?
Not healthy. Really.
Not healthy. And then Hayden, we wanted to preserve that red shirt, so we didn't trust him fully yet. So
pass pro is where he needs help. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you saw the spring, and that's just a hard thing to do for running backs. You know what I mean? Like, you have to want to do it.
Not to mention, you got 15 guys coming from 15 different angles. You got to know where to hit and where your responsibility is. It's tough. It's not as easy as it sounds. And to Trey's credit, he's really improved and gotten really good at it. Another reason why we trust him, other than the fact he's a huge playmaker.
So. Judkins didn't have to do it much in Ole Miss offense. You know what I mean? Like, it was either a swing, like a relief swing, or he ran a route, or he was handing the ball off to. You know what I mean? So, like, he didn't have to do a whole ton of it.
I have a feeling we're going to do that with Judkins too, real routes and things like that. Use his receiving skills in the game.
Yeah, he's a very good pass catcher. Like you said, like you were talking about earlier, he's not the most like top end speed running back to like burn a linebacker. You know what I mean? But he's plenty fast enough to beat his guy.
To burn people. A linebacker ain't sticking with him. No, absolutely not.
So like that, I think that's where I think that our offensive line. I mean, a lot of people were overcritical in my opinion. We had a bad performance against Missouri, like putrid one. Like there's a lot going on at that time.
We didn't have our center in the game, obviously.
We didn't have our center. Enoch wasn't ready. Like,
oh my goodness, was he not ready?
Jeez. And you can't put Hinsman back in there at that point. You know what I mean? Like, it's just we did not. It was a lot going on. We had our third string quarterback play for 80% of the game, so I think there was just a lot. And no Marvin. You know what I mean? So I think there was a lot going on. But I think our offensive line, I think it can be right around a B this year grade.
I hope that's good enough to win it all.
Plus, you know what I mean? I think the top end's B plus, which I think is good enough with our talent around them to win it all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think quarterback position, but yeah, running back. I think Will Howard is actually going to help out our running backs a lot.
Yeah,
just by the run, dual threat and being able to count. I mean, we saw even when CJ ran just a little bit, those few plays right after that CJ ran, like they contained that edge a lot more than they did when. Instead of crashing down. So like it makes a difference. And I think our run game is going to be for a decent line. I think our run game is going to be pretty darn good this year. And we're moving it on in practice against our ones, which is, I think, the best defense in the country this year. So I think our running backs and our offensive line is going to do just fine. Yeah,
we'll have to have you back to talk defense because everybody's saying CJ Hicks might finally be turning it on.
Yeah, the last week it's just something has clicked. They're using him a lot differently now too, which helps.
Uh-oh. Put that athlete on the field. Uh-oh. So anyway, Dylan, tell them where they could find you, buddy.
At Dylan Freeman VP on X. Yeah, X.
On X, yeah. I usually want to say Twitter too.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Dylan, man, we appreciate you, buddy. This has been I've had a great time talking to you about Buckeye football. I missed Buckeye football. We got another 6
next
months.
Weekend.
True, the spring game, but then we got how many months after that? And I don't even enjoy the spring game anymore because it's so orchestrated these days.
I wonder if we're going to do anything a little different this year with it being on Fox.
I don't know. Ryan Day probably. I don't care. I don't want to hurt anybody, but
which I agree with, and I'd make it just a basic practice. You know what I mean?
I want to see Aaron Nolan and Julian Sayin kind of get the majority of the throws, in my opinion, because you kind of via practice they got to know what they have with Devin Brown and Will Howard. So. I would say let the young guys kind of own it, but that's just me. So I don't know. Oh man, well, I appreciate you, Dylan. We'll have to have you on again, man. And we're many times this offseason talk about what's going on with Buckeye football. As always, guys, if you like what you see, like the video, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate it. It helps the algorithm, helps us bring more free Buckeye content for you. We're going to have Dylan on again many more times to talk what's going on in Buckeye off season and leading up to the season, of course. And any sudden changes, we're going to bring it to you. Appreciate you guys as always. Goodbye. God bless. And, of course, go Bucks.